Good morning, class 12. So today we are just going to address a very popular debate in psychology of where does intelligence come from? Is it the nature or is it the nurture? Nature being the genetics or the heredity of the child or the individual, and nurture basically refers to the upbringing or the environment of the individual. So when we see these statistics, if you can just pause the video and just reflect on what do you think these numbers show. So if you see these numbers, identical twins read together, we see that their intelligence is more or less similar. So we see a correlation between both the intelligences being 0.9, and with identical twins read separately or read in a different environment, we see the intelligence reducing to 0.7. Fraternal twins who do not share the same genetic material as the identical twins, when we see them, their intelligence when read together is 0.6, and siblings read together is 0.5 and siblings read apart is 0.25. So what these statistics basically show us is that the heredity does come from intelligence, because identical twins are seen to have the same genetic material, hence they are seen to have the same intelligence. Fraternal twins have somewhat the same genetic material, so therefore their intelligence is seen to be 0.6. And siblings, again, because it's the same parent or both the parents are the same, and the genetic material will also be quite similar, but not as similar as fraternal twins, but still quite similar. Their intelligence, or the correlation between their intelligence, is 0.5. But now we also see that those identical twins who are read apart, their intelligence is 0.7, and those siblings read apart, their intelligence is 0.2. So this does say that the environment does influence the children and their intelligence. So like I said, this debate is pretty ongoing and we don't really have a conclusion to it, but let's just see the studies that are mentioned in your book. One basically says that, like, taking this table into consideration, we can say that the genetic material does play a very important role in determining one's intelligence. But also with adoption studies, what we have seen is that adopted children basically show an intelligence closer to their adoptive parents. So this shows that the nurture or the environment of the child also plays a very important role in determining his or her intelligence. Even certain practices like reading a bedtime story, or maybe teaching the child nursery rhymes, or playing the piano or playing sports, also has a good effect on the intelligence, and the children tend to show a higher intelligence. Even nutrition, the social background and the economic background of the parents, and a good schooling also shows that the child can have or can show higher scores on an intelligence test. Next we come to how to assess intelligence. So the formula for assessing intelligence was given by William Stern, and what he said is intelligence is, like, the formula for the IQ or the intelligence quotient is MA upon CA into 100, where MA is your mental age, CA is your chronological age, and IQ is your intelligence quotient. So your chronological age is basically the age in years. So you might be like 16 years, 17 years, like, say, depending on the years that you have covered since you've been born. And mental age basically refers to your intellectual functioning or your mental functioning compared to the mental functioning of your peer group. So is your mental functioning, like, say, if you're 16 years old, is your mental functioning as good as a 16-year-old? Say if you're 6 years old, then is your mental functioning as good as a 6-year-old child? In this case, where the mental age is similar to the chronological age, the IQ usually equals 100 and the person is said to have an average IQ. But if your mental age is seen to be more than your chronological age, like, say, if you are 6 years old but you're showing an intelligence of a 16-year-old, or of a 10-year-old, then your IQ will be more than 100, which means you will either have, like say, a high, average, superior, or a very superior IQ, because even though you're 6 years old, but your mental functioning and your intelligence is that of a 10 or a 16-year-old. Next is if your mental age is less than your chronological age. Like say if you're 16 years old but you are not able to solve questions or solve problems or follow instructions that a first grader or a second grader can follow. So in this case your mental age is less than your chronological age, and over here your IQ will be less than 100. So it could be low, average, borderline, mild mental retardation, or moderate mental retardation. So usually IQ scores below 70 would come under M, mental retardation or intellectual disability, which we'll be discussing further in the chapter. So for now, like I'll just conclude this topic by saying that the formula for IQ is MA upon CA into 100, and usually if the MA equals CA, the IQ tends to be around 100. If MA is more than CA, then IQ is more than 100. If MA is less than CA, then your IQ is less than 100. Now, if I have to assess, say, 1000 people, and I assess the IQ score or an IQ test on these 1000 people, and I take their IQ scores. So the IQ scores, if I plot it on a graph, the graph would take this kind of a shape, where most people, like if you see this graph, these are the IQ scores and this is the frequency in the population. So most people will show a score towards 100, and less people will show the extreme scores, which is extremely low or say extremely high scores. So if you see this curve, it's a bell-shaped curve, and this is what we call a normal curve. So over here what happens is that most people tend to score towards the average or towards the average scores. This is what gives it a bell shape, and less people tend to score extreme scores, which is like 130 or below 70. So you can see how the curve decreases and then becomes very, very minimal towards the extreme scores. So those people who get below 70 come under the intellectual disability category or the mental retardation, but we don't use this word anymore because it's outdated and also it was very degrading. So now we use intellectual disability, and those people who get above 130 are told to be gifted. So our next slide has a few questions for you. Try to solve them and we will discuss about it in class. So what is intellectual deficiency? So intellectual deficiency, according to the American Association on Mental Deficiency, it basically says that mental retardation has three features. One being significantly sub-average general intellectual functioning. So these individuals show an intellectual functioning that is below average, or it's not as good as people their age would show. Then deficits in adaptive behavior. So these people cannot really adapt to their environment. So they are not able to, eat by themselves, or, take a bath by themselves, or, carry their books to school, or, follow a timetable, follow a schedule. So these are certain deficits in adaptive behaviors that this feature explains. Next is these two features, like significantly sub-average level of functioning and deficits in adaptive behavior, can be seen in the developmental period itself. Now, what is the development period? From 0 to 18 years old. So you can see the IQ range, like say of those below 70, and you can see that a mild MR means 55 to 69 is the IQ, moderate means 40 to 55, severe is 25 from 39, and profound is below 25. So you can see that the support that they require, and when it comes to education, how much can they do? Like say those with mild mental retardation, they can still be in school, but maybe they will not go beyond maybe first or second grade. But those with profound, it's going to be very, very tough because they need pervasive support, which means that they'll need support all the time. So means you can't really educate them. And sadly, people with profound mental retardation or intellectual disability don't even live that long because their brains are not so developed to even carry out basic bodily functions. So intellectual giftedness, so we spoke about intellectual deficiency, now we'll talk about intellectual giftedness. So intellectual giftedness is basically means those people showing high performance across different areas, and they also have an IQ above 130. So across different areas, it basically means that these children will be good at mathematics, language, sports, music, art, public speaking, everything. And these children are also seen to be high on ability, high creativity and high commitment. Usually this is asked as a fill in the blank. So just remember this sentence very well. Next is the characteristics of gifted children. You basically see that they have an advanced logical thinking, questioning and problem solving. They have higher processing speed, so they understand concepts faster. And they basically can generalize and discriminate between concepts easier. They are original thinkers, like they are also seen to be creative and they can think original, like their ideas can be different from the others. They have high level of intrinsic motivation and a very high self-esteem, and they're independent and they don't really conform with their thinking. So like we said, they're independent thinkers and they're original thinkers and they want to think out of the box. Then they also prefer solitary activities for a long period of time because their intelligence is so high that others can't really think at their level. So usually you'll see these people not trying to be, but just being a little aloof. Now how can gifted children reach their full potential? Now see, like say gifted children basically means someone with a mental age way beyond their chronological age. So say if he's a first grader, he probably thinks like a 6th or a 7th grader. So keeping this gifted child in a first grade classroom might not be good for him because it might just reduce his potential and might just not help him improve because he already knows everything that's in first grade. So for children who are gifted, we usually give them special attention and a different educational program that can kind of enrich their abilities. So probably these children skip grades and they also have certain higher level training which can actually match up to their level of thinking and their level of abilities. Now, what is the difference between giftedness and talent? So, giftedness basically means that they show superior performance in a wide variety of area, whereas talent is basically showing superior performance in a specific area. So, highly talented people are sometimes called prodigies. So, they show excellent performance or superior performance in a particular area, like those who are talented. But those who are gifted will show superior performances across areas. So, this is with intellectual. So what did we discuss today? We spoke about what is the role of nature and nurture in understanding intelligence. Then we spoke about the formula for intelligence. We spoke about how the distribution scores, how the IQ scores are distributed in a population. We spoke about intellectual deficiency, intellectual giftedness, and how it is different from talent. So these are again a few questions for you to think, and you can write these in your book, and when we come on the Zoom session next, we'll be discussing about it. Thank you.